Hi, this is Michael from Barista Next Door, and today we're going to have a look at 5 fundamental rules of pouring latte art and how these rules can have a great impact on your latte art skills and help you pour a lot better art. Before you even start pouring anything, you want to make sure that you know which pattern you're going to use. So before you make your coffee, just decide on, alright, now I'm going to do a heart or rosetta or a tulip or anything like that, and then you know exactly what you're going to go for. Sometimes, you know, the consistency of your crema or of your milk, how thick your milk is, will influence that decision, and you know, with like thicker milk you want to go for certain patterns, and with like thinner or like more creamy milk you want to go for other patterns. And once you've seen like what factors you're dealing with, you can decide on that pattern, and then you'll know what you're going to do when you start pouring. Otherwise, you know, you might start pouring, you're like, oh, I have no idea what I'm going to do, we'll just see what happens, and you end up with a big mess. So that said, always start with a plan in mind and decide beforehand what kind of pattern you're going to pour. One thing I see a lot with people, especially people who work in cafes, is they waste a lot of time before they pour their latte art. Sometimes, you know, the espresso shot sits around for up to a minute or so before it's used, or the milk sits around and disintegrates, which means that the foam settles on top and lots of foamy milk settles at the bottom, and you have to kind of reintegrate it by swirling the jug. But even then the milk will not be as good as just right after you've finished heating it. This is why with pouring latte art, you really don't want to waste any time. In an ideal world, like with a dual boiler coffee machine, you'll finish extracting your espresso shot and heating your milk at the same time, and then you start pouring it right away, which enables you to get the best result out of your coffee. You'll see that especially with espresso shots, right after you've extracted them is really the best point to use them. So you extract the espresso shot, get it right away and start pouring your latte art, and you get a really great result. This is why you don't want to waste any time when pouring your latte art. One very important thing that has a great influence on how your latte art comes out is whether you're moving your jug or not. Now, by moving a jug, I do not mean, you know, how fast you can shake your wrist, but whether you're moving the jug from the back of the cup to the front of the cup, or from the left to the right, or from the right to the left, depending on what kind of pattern you make. You see a lot of people who start out with, you know, they're pouring the milk, and then they see something starts to happen on the crema, you know, like the milk is leaving traces or whatever, and then they just like start to wiggle as fast as they can. They're like, yeah, try to get those things like those leaves going on the rosetta or anything like that. And what happens is, because they're not moving like anywhere at the cup or the jug, like not moving from the back to the front, all those leaves, like potential leaves they are creating, are just getting pushed together. So when you stay like this and you wiggle and you're not moving, like moving to the front of the cup, for example, then all these leaves that you're creating are just getting condensed in one point, and the only thing you create is like a heart, you know. So that said, if you want to get to the next step of your latte art and really improve, you want to make sure that, for example with the rosetta, that you start pouring at the back of the cup, and once you see like your milk is leaving traces and you're wiggling, you then gently move towards the front of the cup, and this will enable you to pour these really nice, you know, hollow leaves and all that, and that really goes for all the other patterns as well. So let's assume you're doing a tulip, you know. That's one thing where you have to move your jug around a lot, and you can't just be like at the same spot. It kind of doesn't work out, so you have to, like, you know, move those milk stains in and then get the other one going, and so on and so forth. So, you know, try to become more flexible with your jug and start moving it around more, and you get a lot better results. Another thing you want to consider when pouring your latte art is the flow speed of the milk that is coming out of the jug. You want to make sure that you always have consistent flow. So once you started pouring, just try to get the milk coming out at the same flow all the time. And you know, sometimes you see the milk leaving traces on the crumble and you get all like overly excited and you start pouring more, or like you may, depending on what kind of character you are, you may, you know, become anxious and start pouring less milk, and you're like, oh yeah, seeing traces there, I'll just become slower, and that doesn't necessarily help you out a lot. So, you know, try to just have always the same flow. But if you're like doing some patterns, what you can do is you can lower or raise the jug. That's like one thing that is necessary for some of the patterns, like the heart, you know. You start out like with the same flow, you go around in circles, and eventually you lower the jug, but you keep the same flow. So rather than changing how much milk you're putting out, you can, you know, lower or raise the jug, and that will give you a bit more control over what is happening in the cup. And of course, the most important rule is practice, practice, practice. You're not going to get better if you're not practicing a lot. Best thing is, well, to work in a cafe and make hundreds and hundreds of coffees, and over the time you'll just like learn more and learn more and learn more, and get to the point where you're like really, really good. However, if you're just making coffees at home, you know, you can make 2 or 3 coffees every day and practice like that as well. And that said, practice is the one thing that makes it perfect. And if you keep looking at what things you can improve, and like just look at what you might be doing wrong and trying to improve these things, then your practice will become more efficient and you'll learn faster over time. These are the 5 rules of improving a latte art, and if you adhere to them, you'll actually become good a lot faster than if you're just like, you know, doing random things and not really looking at what you're doing.